Ever feel like you're supposed to be like surrounded by people all the time?
Yeah.
Like being alone is somehow a bad thing.
Yeah.
Today we're diving into Renuka Gavrani's The Art of Being Alone to kind of unpack that whole idea
Right.
and uncover how powerful solitude, I think, can really be.
It's really interesting, how this kind of negative perception of solitude,
Yeah.
it's become so like ingrained in our culture.
It really has. And, Gavrani, she tackles this head on.
Hmm.
And you know what really struck me?
What's that?
She talks about how, like, external factors,
Yeah.
like social media, even movies,
Right.
contribute to this feeling of, like, missing out if they're
Yeah.
not constantly, like, socializing.
It's true. Yeah, we see it all the time, right? Just like bombarded with images of people like having a blast in these big groups.
Right.
And it can definitely like make those of us who, actually enjoy spending time alone
Hmm.
feel like they're somehow, missing the boat.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And it's not just those external pressures, right?
Right.
Gavrani, she recounts this like really relatable experience from her own life, actually,
Okay.
about feeling like a total outsider during like her school years,
Hmm.
and just those feelings of being judged for like enjoying solitude.
Yeah.
It can be, I mean, it can be really powerful even from such a young age.
Absolutely. And that fear of judgment, I think, it can lead us to kind of like hide our true selves
What the total?
just to, fit in and be accepted.
Right.
And it's ironic, right? Because like conforming to what we think other people want
Yeah.
can actually lead to I think even greater feelings of loneliness, right?
Yeah.
By kind of disconnecting us from who we really are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like, we've kind of bought into this idea that
Mm-hmm.
like being alone automatically equals being lonely, right?
Right.
But Gavrani, she kind of flips that whole notion on his head, wouldn't you say?
Totally, yeah. She really challenges us to see solitude not as this thing to be like, feared or avoided,
Right.
but as a tool, really,
Mhm.
for growth. And she even goes so far as to call it the art of being alone.
That's right. And she backs this up with some like really fascinating examples, like the painter Georgia O'Keeffe,
Right.
who, produced some of her like most captivating work
Yeah.
while like basically living in near isolation in New Mexico, right?
Yeah, and for O'Keeffe, solitude, it wasn't just about like finding peace and quiet or anything.
Yeah.
It allowed her to really like deeply connect with the natural world,
Yeah.
to observe all these like subtle nuances of light and form that
Yeah.
honestly, most people just completely miss in
Yeah.
like the rush of everyday life, right?
Totally.
And those observations became like the direct inspiration for, so many of her paintings.
That's so fascinating to me. Like it's like solitude provided the space,
Hmm.
for those observations to kind of like transform into art almost.
Yeah, exactly.
And wasn't there another example in the book
Yeah.
about wasn't it Nikola Tesla maybe
That's right, yeah.
who you know k- kind of attributed some of his like groundbreaking inventions to these like long periods of solitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Tesla was, kind of a guy who really lived in his own mind, right?
Yeah.
And he really believed that being alone, it allowed his mind to kind of like become sharper,
Right.
free from all the distractions that, kind of clutter our thinking, especially these days.
Yeah.
And he has that, really famous quote where he says, let me see if I can get it right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Be alone. That is the secret of invention. Be alone. That is when ideas are born.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So like it sounds like both O'Keefe and Tesla, right? Although,
Yeah.
obviously in very, very different fields, kind of both found that solitude gave them a space, not just to think,
Right. Yeah.
but to really like process information and experiences.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately fueled their creativity and led to like these incredible breakthroughs.
Exactly. Yeah. And it makes sense, right? Just like our bodies need time to like digest food. Our minds also need time to kind of digest, I guess, information and experiences.
Right.
To kind of process everything. And
Yeah.
and solitude, in a sense, it gives us that necessary downtime, right?
Hmm.
It creates that space for, reflection,
Yeah.
and it lets us reconnect with our own inner voice.
It's like hitting the reset button or something.
Yeah, totally.
And kind of reminding ourselves of what actually like matters,
Right.
without all that external noise.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really, as we're talking, I'm starting to really see why Gavrani kind of frames solitude as an art.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it takes a certain level of, I don't know, awareness
Mm-hmm.
and intention, really, to kind of harness its power.
It really does. And she even goes so far as to suggest
Yeah.
that we can actually like cultivate a sense of boredom.
Okay, now tell me more about this whole like boredom thing.
Right.
Because honestly, it's not something I like typically associate with personal growth. You know what I mean?
Right. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, especially in like our world today,
Yeah.
where we're like constantly stimulated and entertained and distracted.
Right.
So the idea of just like being, it can be really uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Right.
But Gavrani, she argues that boredom, it can be this like surprising catalyst for creativity.
Yep.
Because when we let ourselves feel bored, like really just kind of like sit with that feeling
Mm.
without, immediately like reaching for our phones or whatever it is,
Right.
it can like open up this space in our minds
Right.
for new ideas and insights to kind of emerge.
It's almost like our minds when they're just like constantly occupied.
Yeah.
They don't get that opportunity to actually like wander,
Right. Right.
or to just kind of like stumble upon those aha moments.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's where I think that's where the kind of the magic of solitude comes in, right?
Mhm.
It provides the space for those moments to actually occur.
So, we've been talking about how solitude can be like this incredible catalyst,
Right.
for creativity and self-discovery and all that.
Mm.
But it's easy to kind of get, I don't know, get lost in the theory sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like how do we actually apply this art of being alone
Right.
in our own lives? Like Gavrani wouldn't leave us hanging without some like practical advice, would she?
Oh no, not at all.
Oh.
She offers this really, I think, clear framework for kind of turning those aha moments, into like
Right.
tangible change, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And it all starts with figuring out what she calls your one big issue.
Okay, so let's unpack this one big issue concept.
Yeah.
What exactly does she like? What does she mean by that?
So it's about like really getting laser focused, I guess you could
Right.
say,
Yeah.
on that one area of your life, right?
Mhm.
That you like most want to improve. And
Right.
and the key is like not everything at once.
Right.
Just one thing.
Okay.
And this this helps with not getting overwhelmed, I think.
Right.
And it makes it a lot more likely that you're actually gonna like make some real progress,
Yeah, it's like instead of like trying to,
Right.
overhaul your entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
You pick one specific area,
Right.
to kind of like focus your energy on.
Yeah.
Because it is really easy to like get sidetracked,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
when you're trying to like juggle too many things at once.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, once you've kind of like identified what that one big issue is, right?
Yeah.
Gavrani then suggests kind of pinpointing your one big action.
So, okay, so if the one big issue is like the what, then the one big action is kind of the how.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about breaking down that, larger goal
Yeah.
into this like single actionable step.
Right.
Something that you can actually like do every single day.
Right.
So like I don't know if your one big issue is wanting to write a book, right? Your one big action might be like, I don't know, committing to writing one page every day.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of reminds me of that saying,
Mhm.
like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Right, exactly.
Like, you're not trying to write like the whole book
Right.
in one go or
Right.
it's about just like focusing on that one page,
Mm-hmm.
one day at a time.
Ah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about it's about consistency, right?
Right.
It's about like building that momentum
Right. Yeah.
and then to kind of make those like daily actions even more impactful, Gavrani has like this third piece of advice,
Okay.
which is to sync with your nature.
Okay, this sounds interesting. So like what does it mean to kind of like sync with your nature when it comes to,
Yeah.
solitude and self-improvement and all that?
So I think it's about like recognizing
Yeah.
that we all have these like unique rhythms, right?
Mhm.
And preferences. Like
Yeah.
if you're, I don't know, if you're a morning person,
Yeah.
maybe, you dedicate that first hour of your day to
Bro.
to your one big action, right?
Yeah.
If you're if you're more of a night owl, maybe you create this like, relaxing evening ritual
Right.
around your chosen action.
Okay.
It's really about making you know, it's about making solitude kind of work for you,
Right.
not against you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like there's really no point in like forcing yourself
Right. Exact.
to fit into some kind of mold that just like doesn't suit your
Right.
natural tendencies and your rhythms.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of her approach, I think, is that it's very, it's very adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
and it really encourages you to, personalize these concepts, to
Yeah.
to fit your own life
Right.
and preferences.
It's great. So we've gone from kind of like debunking the myths around solitude, right?
Mm,
To recognizing it as this tool for growth
right.
and even learning like this practical framework for putting it into practice.
Yeah.
But, Gavrani, she kind of takes it a step further, don't you think? She does.
Yeah. Yeah.
She argues that we can actually make solitude into something that we like crave almost,
Yeah.
right? She talks about making solitude like addictive,
Mm-hmm.
but in a good way, of course.
Right, of course. But that, I mean, that all sounds like a paradox, doesn't it?
It does, yeah,
Like
yeah.
how do you make something that's so often like, associated with isolation
Right.
into something that you actually like look forward to?
Well, the key is really, I think,
Making it joyful. Right.
she talks about
Mm.
cultivating like multiple sources of joy in your life.
Yeah, and you mentioned hobbies.
Yeah.
Like, could you maybe elaborate on what Gavrani herself does? Sure. Yeah, she's a huge believer in like, lifelong learning.
Mm.
And she always encourages, her readers to really delve into subjects that, that truly intrigue them,
Yeah.
to challenge themselves with new skills and things like that.
Right.
And one of her, I guess, more practical tips, I guess, is to create this feeding my mind folder.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it's basically like, this place where she stores, articles she's found interesting,
Yeah.
or podcasts, or, online courses, anything that's kind of like sparked her curiosity,
Yeah,
know?
it's like curating your own personal like
Totally.
library almost of
Yeah.
knowledge and inspiration and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the thing is, right, like with so many like amazing resources available online these days,
Right.
and so many of them free,
Totally.
there's really no excuse not to be like, constantly learning and kind of expanding your horizons.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's, it's not just about like filling our minds with information.
Right. Yeah, it's about applying it too.
Right, exactly.
And she really encourages readers to, to really take action,
Yeah.
on their newfound knowledge, whether that's, through starting some new project, or I don't know, maybe having like deeper conversations with people in their life, or even just like, seeing the world through a new lens, really.
Yeah. It's like taking all that mental nourishment, I guess,
Right.
and actually like turning it into something tangible.
Yeah.
Something that enriches our lives and honestly the lives of those around us too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that actually kind of brings us to one of Gavrani's, I think, most powerful pieces of advice,
Yeah.
which she kind of frames as this really, I think, simple but really profound
Mhm.
shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And that is, and I'm gonna quote her here directly. It's do the things that you wanted to do with others, with yourself.
It's such a short statement, but
Yeah.
it's so powerful, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, like it's like I don't know, it's like giving yourself permission
Hmm.
in a way to like live life on your own terms, you know,
Hmm.
to not be limited by like the expectations or even just the availability of other people.
Exactly. And she actually gives some really good examples from her own life, you
Yeah.
know.
What kind of things does she talk about?
Well, she talks about like, creating like a whole movie night experience, but just for herself,
Yeah.
like with popcorn and candles and everything,
I
right?
love that.
Or like packing a picnic basket, and
Yeah.
heading to the park and just like, enjoying a good book by herself.
It's so true. It's like, it's about like romanticizing your alone time in a way.
Totally.
Like treating yourself with the same kind of care and attention that you would give to a loved one.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think, in doing so, it's like you're kind of cultivating that sense of like self-sufficiency
Mm,
and fulfillment
totally.
that isn't like dependent on an
Mm,
external validation and all that.
exactly. And I think that's really the like, the essence of what Gavrani is talking about when she talks about the art of being alone.
Yeah.
It's about finding that joy and that creativity and that connection
Yeah.
within yourself,
Yeah.
not from these external sources and
Yeah.
really kind of recognizing that solitude, or far from being something that we need to fear or avoid,
Right.
can really be like this pathway, to a richer and ultimately more fulfilling life.
It really has been eye-opening, I think, to kind of like delve into Gavrani's, her insights on solitude with you today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It's definitely given me a lot to kind of like think about, in terms of my own relationship
Hmm.
with being alone.
Yeah, I think hopefully our listeners, feel similarly. Like they feel a little more equipped to kind of like
Yeah.
reframe their perception of solitude and
Right.
and really kind of like discover all these hidden benefits.
Absolutely. Well, as we kind of wrap up here,
Yeah.
here's a parting thought for our listeners, to kind of like take with them.
Mm.
What's one small act of self-love or self-discovery that you can kind of gift yourself this week,
Right.
even if it's just for 15 minutes.
Right.
And just remember that building a fulfilling life, it often starts with really nurturing, I think,
Yeah.
a really strong and joyful relationship with yourself.
It really does.
It's been great talking to you.
Likewise.